Oh. Whoa, look at that. We're recording. Man, golly. It's like it wasn't planned. That sounds familiar. Yep. Hello, everyone. It's us. You know, your number one Schmucks.
Are you okay?
I'm great.
It sounds like you're struggle busing over there.
Oh, no. I don't struggle.
You don't? Are you
no,
sure? We can rewind the footage.
We're not.
So we can hear it again.
Only I do.
Audio tracks.
I can edit in and out whatever I desire. It's my program. It's my terrain.
It's my Audacity. Sponsored by Audacity.
We're
not.
Okay,
I don't think you can be sponsored by it. We've gone over this multiple times.
This is, as in the industry, we call this
a callback.
And also a gag at this point.
It's a running gag.
Yes.
Audacity, sponsor us. If you're real people and not cowards, sponsor us.
Okay, let's not threaten them. They might, I don't know, take away my... I don't know. Hello, everyone. This is our second episode. Yes. Two Schmucks and a mic. So we're going to try a different format, hopefully, today. And because the other day on Twitter, I made a poll on what format you guys, the listeners, I was going to say our listeners, but you're also part of this in a way. But hopefully you're part of this because, you know, listening and all that. And
we appreciate your feedback fully. And that's why Sam went out and did the poll to see what kind of format you guys want to hear from us. And see what the structure can be moving on from now.
Yeah. And Luis, did I tell you the results of the poll?
No. Can we all know what the results of the poll are? Just not me. You out there, the listening viewer. What can we expect from the future of us, two Schmucks with the one mic?
The results were a tie.
God, I love living.
It was between two topics, but shorter. And one topic about 30 minutes.
Well, you're just in luck, because if you're listening today, we're going to try that experimental ladder and see if we can do one topic for half an hour.
And we're already 2 minutes in.
God help us right now. Save our souls, because I don't know how we can make this topic last only 30 minutes.
I mean, we'll figure it out. It's a whole experimental process, this whole podcasting thing anyway. There doesn't have to be a proper format, maybe. Who knows? We'll find out.
Yeah, and I mean, that was the weirdest thing that we saw during that whole experimental finding out of what to do with the podcast. Like, listeners only want to have 16 minutes or less of a podcast.
Even though that's...
crazy!
Yeah. But, so, our topic today is one very near and dear to Luis's and me and Luis's hearts.
Our hearts are very filled with passion for this topic because it is about superheroes today. So if you're not about superheroes, well, you can go back and listen to the first episode or wait until the third because today is just going to be jam-packed with it. And we're going to be talking about superhero fatigue, especially within the media and everything that's going on so far with Marvel and DC and all these other ones coming out because... I don't know if you noticed, but there's a lot of superhero content out there. And as a kid, I would have loved it now. Just trying to get my hands on every single part of the superhero, just things, like comic books, television series, movies, costumes. Like, I would have just tried to delve in wholeheartedly. And now as an adult, I'm just trying to pick and choose which content that I actually do want to watch and what actually piques my interest. And I think that's where the fatigue is trying to settle in. Because thinking back to when Arrow started in 2012, I'm going from DC's standpoint right now, I was fully invested from season 1 all the way to season 3, going on to season 4. And then it kind of just dropped. I dropped a lot of the DC shows because I just couldn't keep up anymore. Yeah. I don't know about you, but it was just hard to maintain a lot of my attention with what was going on because it was just way too much trying to connect a lot of the things going in. And it was just hard to figure out when to start certain sagas and storylines and the crossover events.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember because I started with Arrow and I wanted to also watch The Flash and Legends of Tomorrow. And I remember looking up lists of when to watch each episode because of, the crossover events. Because you can't just watch, there was a time where you couldn't watch like Arrow Episode 1, Flash Episode 1, Legends Episode 1, because they kind of exist not all during the same time frame. And so if you watch Arrow Episode 6, they may bring up something, an event that might have happened in Flash Episode 5, and it's just, you need a very specific thing if you want to get that very full experience to go through the entirety of the multiverse and the universe that at least the CW DC shows have taken upon themselves there.
And to piggyback off of that, just the fact that the characters are different in each of those shows too. If you look at Barry Allen coming in from episode 8 or 9 in season 2 of Arrow, kind of the same and different than what he is in the main Flash series moving onward. And Heat Wave and all those villains who end up joining Legends of Tomorrow are different than they were in the earlier seasons of The Flash. And so that can really throw an audience confused, like just out there not understanding what is happening. And I think that's another aspect of the superhero fatigue that we're seeing, is that a lot of the DC stuff is trying to be connective with a mainstay audience, just like Marvel is. And now with Marvel, on the other hand, too, whenever Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came out, right after Avengers and all that good stuff happened, it was hard to keep up with it because it was also taking stuff from the cinematic universe. And I think they finally learned not to get too interconnected with that, with shows like Jessica Jones and Daredevil and Luke Cage, Iron Fist, The Punisher, before they got canned. Those all were living in their own universe, living with their own storylines and their own crossovers, not having to worry about, like, oh, is Lady Sif going to come back after the events of Thor Ragnarok or Thor the Dark World? You know, like, it was just a weird time to be watching that kind of content and trying to figure out why this was happening. If you weren't going to see the movies at the same time, you're like, oh, this is something that I don't have to pay for because it's already in my basic cable package or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you're just watching it at home at your own leisure. But if you don't know what's happening in the movies, you're kind of already missing a big major plot hole or a plot device within Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And that was very difficult. And that's why I stopped watching those shows and just kept maintaining a lot of viewing with the Marvel movies.
Yeah. Like, there's one thing to have, like, maybe a trilogy of something, and you're expected to have the basic idea of what happened in the previous movie. But I feel like with something as big as the Marvel universe, they have to make it to where you can watch one thing without being required to watch 20 other things, whether that is the TV shows or the movies. Because, like I said, if it's something small, then okay, then they would make sense. You're expected to have seen the previous thing. But with something that huge,
Yeah, it's really tough and it's really hard.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand why we need to jam-pack everything and have it so connective. I mean, what DC is doing right now with their multiverse kind of theory is that all these content can be coexisting at the same time because they're on different Earths. They may be happening in real time with what's going on in current day America, but they're not on the same planet. They're not in the same universe. There's a different type of Earth for each decision that we don't make or we do make, and the vice versa effects of those. And I think that's really cool and that's fun because that's what they did in the comics. But whenever you're trying to apply that to actual media like movies or TV or cartoons, it gets a little bit more harder to maintain. Now with cartoons, I will give them the benefit of the doubt because you can do that a little bit better.
Yeah.
But with TV and movie, whenever you're having the same characters run at the same time, a la The Flash, like Grant Gustin was asked many times, would you take up the mantle of The Flash in a big blockbuster if given the chance? And he was like, yeah, but that's not up to me. That's up to DC to do. And there was a big debate on whether or not it would be successful because of all the confusion that would make for the general audience. And it still kind of worked, but still it didn't work because a lot of people didn't give Ezra Miller the respect that he did for doing that role. And I haven't seen that role. I don't know how he did in it. It just, Justice League didn't appeal to me because it was another one of those big superhero team-ups that didn't or will never live up to the standards that Marvel holds whenever they do theirs. And I think what DC needs to do, and I think they're doing it right now with some of their current stuff, is to stop trying to be Marvel or stop trying to be gritty and just find what made their comics successful in the first place. I'm getting tongue-tied here. But, finding that success that they found on the comic page, translating it well enough into a theatrical sense or a TV sense. Because, they have their own streaming service now to combat Marvel on their streaming platform with Disney Plus.
Oh, yeah.
And they've already created new content. Titans looks a little weird because it's still trying to be that edgy thing.
Yeah.
But the one thing that it can be dark and edgy is what I like, what I'm seeing right now with it is Swamp Thing. And Swamp Thing looks to be super badass, and I would love to see that show. But I also don't want to pay like $10 a month to watch that kind of content.
Yeah.
And it sucks because that's where we're going now, is that we're bleeding more money into these types of things. And at some point in time, a lot of the mainstay going audiences are not going to want to do it. All the mainstream audiences will probably shift their attention to something else. And Star Wars is kind of going in that route as well. And they stopped doing that whole plan of, having one Star Wars film a year?
I think so.
And I think that's...
Sounds like it.
I think that was the best move, to stop doing that, because you're oversaturating the market at that point with a lot of that content. And then it's going to make people not want to be as excited to go see that film. And Marvel has been doing that for quite a while, is trying to lax each year, maybe not showing one, or if they do, they show 2 films instead of just having one film out in theater. And it's still working for them for the most part, and that's great for that model, but eventually it's going to die out, and it's going to die out quick, And I don't want that to happen. I want the superheroes to be around for a long time. But granted that you have these mainstream comic industries like DC and Marvel, some of the other stuff is going to go to the wayside, like Hellboy. That reboot was trash. And that's no offense to anybody who worked on that film. It's just they didn't know what they wanted to be, it seemed like. I don't know if there was too many cooks trying to make the stew, but it just wasn't working. David Harbour did a great job as Hellboy with his characterization as much as he could, but everything just seemed a little flat or just wasn't well edited. It was too fast, too quick paced. We never stayed in one spot long enough. And if we did, it was with the character that didn't have enough screen time or should have been the villain of the film. And then the movie's over because it was so quick.
Yeah. Going off of that in terms of non-Marvel and DC things going into the water, we recently found out that one superhero show we enjoyed that was canceled was The Tick. And I know Luis is a big fan of the original cartoon, and I've only seen some clips of it. And whenever I started watching season 1 and 2, I enjoyed it thoroughly, and it seemed like it really had something going on with its plot and characters and overarching themes. And it had this nice balance of being like a show that's more than just a comedy and had these characters that were brought to life while still having the campiness of what superheroes I think should have. But it just got canceled. Do we know why it got canceled?
I don't know if we know. I think it might have been the viewership wasn't there, which is sad because a lot of the times that these shows get canceled is because there's not a lot of viewing.
Yeah.
And that's a shame because, like we said, the quality of the content in it is great. And it's a great break from all the shit that we've been seeing.
Yeah.
With the over-dramaticism of a lot of things, the overarching themes that they try to shove in each of their films. Yeah. And whenever you watch The Tick, you see all this absurd humor, but it's still kind of grounded and still campy at the same time. It's believable that this kind of superhero can exist.
Yeah.
This kind of world.
And I think, well, it was also only available on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
So that might have been a factor, because I don't think really any other superhero-related things are on Amazon Prime.
No, except for The Boys, which is coming.
Yeah.
Which we talked about the other day. It's interesting how The Chick got canceled.
Yeah.
But they were showing things for The Boys during the whole season 2 run.
Yeah.
And which I found interesting as well. But it's weird, too, that there's all these other superhero shows, too, because Marvel had their hands in a lot of pots.
Yeah.
They had their Hulu series, The Runaways.
Oh, yeah.
That's still going. I think it's going on season 3.
Yeah. And
then Cloak and Dagger on Freeform, which was formerly known as ABC Family, but that's also because Disney owns ABC and all of its affiliates, so that means they could have produced another show. And now we're getting, 3 shows?
Yeah, on for Disney Plus, yeah. Like, there's Hawkeye and Winter Soldier. Not Hawkeye. Falcon. Yeah.
Four, yeah. No, Hawkeye's one of them, too.
Yeah.
There's Hawkeye, Loki,
Oh yeah,
WandaVision, and then Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah. I wonder if that's going to be live action and featuring the original actors from the films.
Yeah. It actually is. I think they're going to have at least a decent amount of budget since Disney's, backing
it's Disney.
And Marvel Studios as well.
Yeah.
So they're going to be producing all of it, and they're going to have Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie and Elizabeth Olsen, Paul Bettany, Jeremy Renner, and Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah.
They're all going to be coming back to play their characters. Which, that is great, but also at the same time, it's just adding more to the market that's already getting overstuffed.
And there's a good chance all these shows are going to be live action. And as we have seen with Into the Spider-Verse, superhero movies and animation need to make a comeback. Because I don't remember really any other animated superhero movie except for Megamind, which, isn't Marvel or DC. But that was a trip of a superhero movie. And that was good to see it in that medium because it would lend itself a lot if we see superhero things with animation. Because it's a medium where you can do literally anything and it would enhance all of these super amazing things all these people can do. And just seeing live action everywhere gets kind of tiresome.
Yeah, I think seeing the same face over and over again, and especially if the performance doesn't change at all from the last time that we see it.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's characters that remain the same throughout whatever experience they go through, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to keep playing the same note over and over again. I mean, what I'm thankful for with the Spider-Mans that we've had in the past is that they play these characters really well or well enough to pass on certain aspects of it. Tobey Maguire played a great Peter Parker, not so much a Spider-Man. As Andrew Garfield played a great Spider-Man, but not so much a Peter Parker type character. And then once we got Tom Holland, it was great to see him play both of those characters extremely well to the best of his ability. And so far, he's been the best Spider-Man in every aspect and regards of that character and who he is. The duality of man is very live within that character. And the way that Holland plays it is perfect. He knows how to balance it well and just do the thing right. And now with that, it's a very interesting thing that we see these types of superheroes. And going back to Spider-Man, this adds more into the fatigue because we had that, early 2000 series, right?
Yeah.
2001 with Spider-Man, with the Sam Raimi's run. And then up to, 2012, I think is whenever The Amazing Spider-Man came out?
I think so.
So that was a couple years removed from the last Spider-Man movie. But not enough time for us to get a new Spidey. Or at least that is whenever The Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out.
Yeah.
And then that did its numbers but got canceled. And then we got Homecoming 2-3 years?
I think so.
After that. And everybody was like, that was too short to do. They didn't need to do that. But then we go back and it was 4 years after the last Spider-Man movie or 3 years after the last Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie that Andrew Garfield got the job. And then now Tom Holland has the job. And I think he's done absolutely fantastic with the job. But that's also saying, oh my God, here's another freaking Spider-Man movie. When can we just stop with the Spider-Man movies? When can we get a new character on the screen or just do something different? Do a new kind of IP. And that's an interesting thing because some people, I think at that time, were saying that. They were saying, why can't we just let this character rest for a bit and then come back to it whenever we have a good enough idea, a good enough story, a good enough production team, a good enough actor to play the character. And then Marvel stepped in and helped Sony so they could do that. And it was great. Now, going off of that and everything else, it's painstaking because the animation aspect of everything with the movies is that a lot of the animated superhero movies are going straight to DVD. If you look at a lot of DC's canon, straight to DVD. Marvel stopped doing theirs because their live actions have been so successful. But if you look back, they had a great canon. They had 2 different Avenger movies that were based in the Ultimate Universe.
Oh, yeah.
And those were kind of interesting and kind of cool to watch. They are a bit of a trip to go back to watch, but they're kind of great quality.
Yeah.
And if we go back even further to the superhero shows, Spider-Man had a great series. Multitudes of series that he's had. But the best one that he had was the Spectacular Spider-Man. I'm losing my words again because I'm getting too passionate about this. But the Spectacular Spider-Man is great, and if you haven't seen that show, go watch it. Absolutely fantastic, absolutely amazing. Whenever the market did not have any superhero shows in a while, that was the best one. And then you had Marvel's Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Yeah. One of the best Marvel shows I think I've ever seen. And it had to get cut short because the new Avengers movie was coming out.
Oh, yeah.
The very first one. And they switched it to Avengers Assemble after that. And I was like, well, you just threw away something great to put something mediocre on. And that's how I feel about that.
And then, of course, the OG Teen Titans on Cartoon Network, which had a very good run, but never quite saw its proper ending. But it might be revived. That was hinted at the end of the Go movie.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've heard anything from it.
Yeah, it's been dormant for a bit, but I think it might be coming back.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I don't know why they would just put that in the movie for it to go into nothing. But I haven't seen anything about that. So I don't know if it is in production, maybe working on the final season, maybe working on a big movie. I would just love to see it return because it was a great series. And one of my first experiences with, I think, the DC canon in general. And it was just a really good show. And it's so weird because now we have Teen Titans Go, which is, as we talked about in the last episode, it's everywhere with Cartoon Network. And there was the one episode, which is, I feel like, the most iconic episode for everyone, where they acknowledge that their show is just screaming and just obscene jokes and just absurd banter, where at one point there was something with character development and arcs that went on for several seasons and just how they've kind of deteriorated into this. And they're self-aware, and it just, where are we going with Teen Titans? Where's that? Where are you, Teen Titans?
I would love for them to come back. And I think they're still working on trying to figure out a way to get, what was it, season 5 or 6?
I think it might be 6, 5, whichever.
Whichever one that they were going off from last season that they had, because it'd be great to go back to that.
Yeah.
Because the quality of writing was great. The jokes that they had in it were great and they landed well. And they didn't treat kids like kids.
Yeah. They
actually treated them like they actually knew what was happening, understand that the dire stakes that these characters were in week in and week out. And that's what's important about it, is not to dumb it down for your audience. You just have to play it as is, straightforward and nothing else. And one of those weird things is that a lot of the superhero shows can thank a lot of this kind of design aspect to Bruce Timm and a lot of the work that he did in 1992 with Batman the Animated Series. That show, if you go back and look at it now as an adult, you can tell that was meant for our age demographic, the 20-something-year-olds or the 18-year-olds, late teens, early 20s demographic, because that is definitely not a kid show.
Oh, yeah. And this goes back to my thing about how animated superhero things are just, I think, superior, because if we look at Teen Titans, there were moments of comedy and stuff where the art style would kind of change for a bit to emphasize the character's emotions. And, there's the typical, the anime sweat drop when an awkward situation happens, or the little veins pulsing from their foreheads when they're angry. And that just helps emphasize emotion and characters in a way that live action just, well, I wouldn't say can't do, but again, I feel in my opinion, with superhero things, you need to have that kind of aspect there because it's superheroes, It's
silly, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
These beings who have superpowers and everything else. I think the one show that does it really well is Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
The other one that does it really well is The Flash. But now it seems like it's trying to get a little edgy and dark. What I've seen, because I haven't seen all of the rest of season 3, 4, and I think it's on 5 currently, correct?
Yeah, I'm closer to being caught up. I'm on the current seasons. But based on what I've seen, it seems like with at least Arrow, Flash, and Legends, respectively, Arrow is more gritty, realistic. Flash is a bit more dire, but has elements of campiness. While Legends is just full on campy. As of right now, it in the earlier seasons, it was a bit more serious and stuff. And there are serious moments, but it's just out of that trinity, it's the campiest of them all. which I enjoy because it's nice to have that away from grittiness and all that stuff.
And you know what? I know you haven't seen it, but I have. And I gotta say, we need to share some love to the female-led superhero show. Because Supergirl's really good. I enjoyed it a lot. I liked the first season well enough for what it was. There were some iffy episodes near the beginning, but once it caught speed fast. And that second season is really good so far. I haven't finished it, but I really like what they were doing with the character. I love Melissa Benoist and how she's handling Kara Danvers and everything else like that. It's really well. It's well done, and I would love to see another female superhero show on the network, and we're going to get one. We're going to get Batwoman, which is great.
Nice.
And I think that might get me back into watching these shows on the regular so I can see what happens there. But if they don't do World's Finest, they're screwing up, in my opinion, because that would be great to see. And I just want to see other superhero-led shows that have a female character.
Yeah.
That strong female characters, because we didn't have that very much. The last shows that I remember having that really well done was Young Justice, Justice League, and Justice League Unlimited, as well as Teen Titans, the original series. Because as well as I like the Spectacular Spider-Man, some of those female characters weren't as strong or they weren't as prominent because it's just about Spidey's story. And that's where you can improve upon it and actually have these characters actually be strong as they are in the comics. Marvel's Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes was kind of getting there with some of its female characters, but they didn't have it there. Because like the Wasp was always somebody who was a damsel in distress because it was Hope. It wasn't Janet.
Yeah.
Or other way around. It was Janet, not Hope.
Yeah.
Like what have we seen in the cinematic universe, Hope is strong. Janet's also strong. But if knowing the comics at all, we could tell like there were some things that were kind of going loosey-goosey and trying to protect the whole thing with the domestic abuse storyline that Hank is, just this awful human being and has been abusing Janet. But you don't see that in this medium because they don't want to push it. And I think that's where the comics did a great job. They're allowed to push that kind of boundary and to teach these young adults that this stuff is not okay.
Yeah.
They try to focus in on it. And the cartoons are starting to do that as well. And if we had the superhero cartoons to help with that too, it'd be great.
Yeah.
And like later aspects of those series had great moments where they did.
Going off of that, in terms of the female-led superhero things, we were talking about earlier how Captain Marvel, in terms of pop figures, she has like 4 different pop versions of herself.
She has even more than that, but they're all bobbleheads, which is weird for me and just for pop aficionados out there. This is a poll that we'll take now. I'll leave a comment somewhere in the ether on multiple surfaces where this is let out. But where do you stand on pop figures? Should they have bobbleheads or should they just remain like the normal standard twisty boys? But if there is a pop with a bobble, do you like the bobble and the twisty or just the bobble or just the twisty?
Jesus Christ.
I just want to know. So back to the main topic.
But yeah, like, it makes me wonder, because they're all most of them are of Carol Danvers. I think there's one where she's holding Goose, and there's one with her on the motorcycle. And I guess that goes to show how successful the movie was, and just how much people wanted this character. Because, literally, there's 2 pop figures where it's literally just, I said literally twice in that sentence, but where it's just Carol in her Captain Marvel outfit, and then it's the same one, but she's wearing a leather jacket over the outfit. And that's just very interesting. I guess it really, it does show how brilliant of a movie that was, and how it just just broke through the records of the box office and all that. And people tried to boycott it because heaven forbid we have a female superhero. Ooh.
Oh, it was more than that because people misread her content of what she said about the
interview.
Press conference things. Yeah. And it's so dumb. She wasn't saying that she wouldn't interview with a male interviewer. It was that she wanted to give more people of color, particularly women of color, the chance to interview high-profile movies because they just don't. Nobody gives them the chance or opportunity to do that. And so she's being in a center of power. She wants to give them more of a chance to do it.
Yeah.
She will interview with anybody, but she would, if she had the choice, she would prefer to do it with them so they can get the coverage that they deserve and the work that they deserve. So if people are stupid and petty and don't look into things. They just see a headline and like, enraged. You shouldn't do that. Don't look just at surface level. Do your research. Be a smart cookie. Yeah. And going back to Captain Marvel, yeah, we're going to get all this great superhero content that has female characters in it, and it's amazing. It shouldn't have taken 20-odd films to get there, though.
Yeah.
That was a horrible thing, because if you go back and look at the very beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the very first Iron Man, women were kind of shown as, like, arm candy and stuff like that, and not so great. Pepper Potts was still very strong, but at the same time, she kind of ended up being the damsel at the very end, because Tony still not trying to figure things out with the suit. Also, go watch the first Iron Man film. If you haven't seen it, that one's also a great film to go into. It's one of my favorite films of all time within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And, definitely in the top 5 at number 1, but might move down. I digress. Yeah. The female characters weren't as strong as they are now. And I think we've gone a long way over the decade to get to that point.
And of course, spoilers for those who haven't seen Endgame, there's that iconic scene where Captain Marvel shows up to take the gauntlet from Peter, and there's just a swarm of Thanos' army coming at her, and Peter's like, are you sure you can fight them all by yourself? Or something like that. And then Okoye comes on, and she's like, she's not alone. And then we have the shot of all of the
female warriors within the Marvel Cinematic Universe come together.
And that was such a good scene. That was good shit. I have no idea what Mantis would have done during that scene. Because, but then again, we saw her subdue Thanos. She was badass. They're all badass. What the fuck am I saying? They're all great.
They're all great. But going back to the different variations of Captain Marvel, that adds into the saturation and adds into the fatigue. Because if people are buying all of this merch and everything else like that, it's selling. So that means we're going to get more of these content. And I think there's going to be a time where it's going to burn out.
Yeah.
I think people are going to stop wanting to come to these films. They're not going to be as interested or as invested as they once were to go see that stuff. And for me, I see that a lot more on the DC side than the Marvel side. The Marvel side's not slowing down anytime soon, which is great for them, but DC really needs to pick it up with their game. Yeah. And they have been with their last 3 movies. With Wonder Woman and with Aquaman and with Shazam, those were great hits. And they were spectacular. After seeing Shazam, which we both have, it was a great film. Yeah. And it was on the right track of where DC needs to do to combat Marvel. It was great thematic content with family is family no matter who you're with, as long as they treat you well and you treat them well as well. I said well a lot in that sentence. I apologize. And just a matter of knowing when to do the right thing, and that the right thing is sometimes the best thing that you can do in that situation.
Yeah.
And to know that the people who love you the most are the people who are willing to make a difference in your life. And the people who are not willing to make that difference aren't really as much as a family as you think they are to begin with. Captain Marvel is a great movie, but Shazam was a great family film to go see. And that's surprising because DC has been struggling to get a family film like that to the level of Marvel.
Yeah. But I would argue that that was a bit loud. I would argue that in a sense you can see Captain Marvel as sort of a family film in a different sense. Luis, God, turn off your phone. Golly, you're good. But I would argue that Captain Marvel is a family film in the sense that because one of my favorite tropes ever is the found family genre. And while that certainly does exist in Shazam with the themes you talked about, we see, Carol discovering her true self after being as Veers and rediscovering her family with, what's the name of her best friend? I forget.
Maria Lambeau.
Yeah. With her and Nick Fury and the Skrull and Talos. Talos, is it?
Talos, I think it's pronounced, yeah.
Like from Skyrim. But yeah. But I don't know, over the course of that movie, because, that was a twist for me, seeing the Skrull and him as the good guys, and over time, all of them coming together, and, Talos going back with his family, and Carol discovering the family she had on Earth, in a sense, and just like, of course, like, the main thing probably isn't family, but I feel like it is a main theme within the film itself. But yeah.
Yeah.
In a traditional sense. Of course, Shazam is much more realistic in terms of families and, going
with
through
the literal adoptive family there.
Yeah.
But I would argue further, if we want to make a great point for family. I think stuff like Thor Ragnarok is a great one. But definitely the Guardians of the Galaxy movie.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Those are the most two defining moments of a band of misfits coming together to be a family.
Yeah.
Whether they know it or not, they are a collective unit of these people that nobody expected to be a beneficial aspect of society, and they come together to save the universe, not once, but twice, and to know that they have each other's back no matter what happens. And what I love about it is that Rocket even mentions that in Endgame, that these people were his family.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen the film, go watch the film. It's great. It's worth the 3 hours.
Yeah.
And if you go and watch it, do not drink liquids until an hour and a half in.
And of course, make sure to watch like 12 other Marvel movies beforehand if you haven't seen those.
All those 21 films going into it. And this is where the fatigue comes in, because a lot of people don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
And it is going to die out eventually. It will die out like the Westerns, because everybody and their mothers were making Westerns back in the day. And then that died out. Yeah. And then everybody was making true crime. That died out. And now this and that. There's a series of patterns in the cycle. Superheroes have been a mainstay and a consistency throughout maybe the early 30s going into today. Now, some sales have kind of dipped whenever it was the Silver Age of comics. Definitely a big major dip in the Bronze Age of comics, which was nearing the modern era, which we're in now. So like that late 80s, early 90s was the Bronze Age, which started to falter a lot with everything that was going on in the time of the comic books. And that aspect, I think, is what leads into our topic with everything that we've said about fatigue. Because if you oversaturate a market too much, nobody's going to want to continuously watch or buy into the things that you're doing, because they need to catch up with everything that came before. And that's why comics is a hard thing for people to get into, because they have to read this issue and that issue and this and that and this and that to understand the full context of what's happening in the story. Or you buy a trade back book that has all the volumes of the important stuff that's in it, and you don't have to have the filler. And that's why I think with a lot of structures that we see in television, if we were going to do superhero shows, let's leave them at 13 episodes, because you don't have to have this amount of filler that destroys your main focus point. And that's this overarching story that you started from way beginning of season 1 or episode 1 going on to your finale.
Yeah.
And that's where that cohesive narrative comes from.
Yeah.
And it's well tight-knit, and that makes it better.
Of course. And of course, I would just like to see standalone superhero films that aren't Marvel or DC. Just something new. Of course, I love all the characters, and I'm not saying that I don't want to see more of them. I certainly do. But it would be nice just to see some company, not Marvel or DC, just throw something out there. Just to see what it is. Something new, something refreshing. The Tick was that, and now it's gone into the ether for reasons that are probably silly. But hopefully, if we do get something like The Tick again, or if The Tick somehow comes back, or something like that, just...
Speaking of which, it actually is trying to be shopped around right now to different networks or streaming services that want to pick it up. And I think if they want to... If any streaming service out there wants to make a great, quick name for themselves, they should attack Amazon by taking The Tick back in and then continuing on the series, and even taking in their earlier episodes and seasons.
Oh, yeah.
Because, one, if they can do that and get all the rights acquired from Amazon to produce that show, it would be gangbusters. Because the talent that they have on that show is astonishingly good.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's just quirky, funny.
Yeah.
And it fits and understandably is what the character is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And a lot of people may be turned off by that. And it's because of the conditioning that they had with the Marvel films. And that's another thing that adds into it.
Yes.
Is that this oversaturation makes it like the Marvel standard. That's what everybody talks about when it comes to superhero films. But it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be that.
And Marvel was silly too. We had the fucking Thanos copter in the comics. Where's the Thanos copter in Endgame? Well, I won't confirm nor deny if the Thanos copter is in Endgame or not, even though I just kind of said. But yeah, like, there's a stigmatism with Marvel movies that we see as a standard for superhero things, where they have to be, so serious and stuff. And, Marvel still has moments of hilarity all the time in each of their movies, but not to the same level of campiness as we see with The Tick.
Yeah.
And I just want that for superhero movies in general. I want more campiness because that's what I live for. And I feel like I can speak for a lot of people. That's what we want to see with superhero things.
Yeah. And I think eventually we need to take a break from the whole superhero aspect.
Yeah.
And I think Marvel is eventually going to take a break long enough to where they know where the fatigue is going to hit. They're going to weigh off for a little bit and then come back with their strand of films.
Yeah.
Because the next movie after 2020 is 2022?
I think.
Which, 2 years is fine, but it's not long enough for them to do it. I think they need to take at least a 3 to 4 year hiatus.
Yeah.
If they really want to make an impact, to see how the market is responding, whether or not they want it or they're going to leave it behind. And if they do leave it behind, then Marvel's kind of screwed. They need to find a way to bring it back. But
yeah.
I bet you, sure enough money, if they stop making films for 4 or 3 years, and they came back with a new film, people will go and watch it.
Yeah.
It's just because of how they've conditioned society now to watch these kinds of films. It's a big event. You go watch it for the big event.
Yeah.
And with everything that you were saying earlier, that wanting new stuff, Spawn is getting rebooted.
Oh, yeah.
Spawn's getting rebooted for, I think, Netflix movies. And the creator of Spawn himself, Todd McFarlane, is going to have Jamie Foxx play the character, which is interesting. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to enjoy it a lot. Jeremy Renner's actually signed on to be a part of that film trilogy as well. That's right. It's going to be a trilogy.
Oh, wow.
It's not going to be one film. It's going to be 3, and then it's going to stop and end.
Good shit.
Which is a great thing, is that they already have it set up to where it begins, has a middle, and finishes with an end.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of things with the aspect of superheroes that we don't see. It's that it's an ongoing thing. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. And then it stops.
Yeah.
Like Smallville had a stopping point. It's going. More episodes going towards Clark becoming Superman. He becomes Superman the last season, and then it's done.
Yeah.
Gotham's kind of going the same way, making Bruce, understanding all the aspect of all the other villains in the universe, and now he's Batman. Like, that's where you need to go. If you're going to go somewhere, it's to a finishing point. Because if you're staying on for too long, nobody's going to watch anymore. And unfortunately, I feel that's what's happening with Arrow. But they also wanted to finish it because there was no other point to finish.
Yeah.
Like, they made it to the end game. They made it to their end game. They made it to the finish line. They made it to where they needed to stop.
Arrowverse Endgame.
Oh my god. There's probably some kooky people out there who did that.
We already had that with the Earth X crossover. It's fine. So I think ending off here.
Yeah, I think that's a good stopping point for it. It's just, we need to find room and breathing room for everyone out there about superheroes, because if we keep doing it and shoving it down everybody's throats, they're going to get sick and tired of it. Yeah. And I think what the companies need to do is just take a break for a little bit and just go against the grain and just make new content and ideas. Or at least stop making films and maybe focus on some form of TV series or reinvigorate the comics. And with that being said, a lot of great content has come out within the past couple of years or decade that had superhero-based content that wasn't attached to an actual IP of a superhero. Yeah. It was just a concept of a superhero that we fed into.
Yeah. With these aspects, with technology and everything else growing, there are all these mediums that these companies can explore, and there's a lot of potential for them to just reach out and try new things. And we feel like if they were to do that, try new things, then that would keep the industry going. But if they keep doing the same stuff, they need to take a break from it.
It's just going to drown if they don't.
Yeah, like the Tick.
I swear, it's going to find a new place to live, and season 3 will happen.
It'll get attached in the sculpts of our love. I don't know, something about a tick.
Some sort of weird burning sensation?
Yeah, sure. Oh, man.
All right, well, here's to the Tick. Save the Tick. It's a trending hashtag on Twitter.
Save the Tick. Do it.
If you want to help and participate in that, and enjoy content that isn't a part of the mainstream industry.
Go watch The Tick. We're not sponsored by The Tick. Go watch him anyway.
If we were, we would save him and we would never cancel him.
Yeah.
Until they wanted to leave. And then obviously we'd reboot it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's all the rage these days.
All right. So I think that was a great amount of time of us rambling about superheroes.
Yeah. Tell us how you feel about this format change. I mean, we'll probably keep experimenting for the next couple of episodes before we find what works best. But please let us know.
Your feedback is important to us, and we really want to give you the best kind of listening experience. So please do talk to us. Leave a comment somewhere where this can be heard.
Yeah. We
would really appreciate it. And as always, I've been Luis.
And I've been Sam.
And we're
Two Schmucks and a Mic.
All right, guys. Peace and love.
So long.